Hey everybody, welcome back. We are going to be starting a new series with Brett on cultural superstitions at tentative title. And today we're going to be talking about blood type in Japan. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is going to be episode 1 of something tentatively titled Cultural Superstitions in Japan. In this series we're going to talk about things in Japanese culture that are traditional, you see around the country all the time, but are not scientific. So today we're going to be talking about blood type, and then we're going to move on to other topics from there, but today we're going to be talking about blood type and its implications in Japanese culture.
So the question is whether or not the proteins in your bloodstream determine your character or have some sort of influence on your character. There is no scientific evidence that says that the proteins do. In fact, there's scientific evidence that says the opposite, that really has nothing to do with your character. I mean, small amounts of protein wouldn't.
What are we talking about? What do the small amounts of protein in blood mean?
Well, what they mean is they determine the type of blood you have. So A, B, B, O, and then the variations within those groups.
Yep, so gram positive or gram negative.
Yeah, exactly. And those have been kind of cordoned off. I don't know what a good explanation for that, but divided into different personality types. So that if you're an A type, you are supposedly a specific character, and if you're a B or an O, you're obviously
you have certain character traits that come with having that type of blood.
Exactly, the same way that if you are a Taurus or a Gemini, you supposedly have certain character traits. Yeah.
Pretty much exactly the same way, yeah. So this is a Japanese version of astrology, and here a lot of times when you meet somebody new, they don't ask you what your sign is, they don't ask you when you were born, they do ask you when you were born, and we'll get to that in a different show. But they ask you about what is your blood type.
And I don't know, I never know, and I haven't known forever, I guess, you know.
If you'd like a really nice oyaji gag, the one that I always use is akagata, so that means red, the red type.
Yeah, they love it.
They do. So where did this stuff come from?
Well, it originally came from a scientist named Karl Landsteiner, and he was an Austrian, and he was working around the turn of the last century, around 1900, and he found three different blood types.
So that would be A, B, and O.
A, B, and O. That's right.
So how did that get to Japan?
So in 1926, there was a paper published called Blood Type Related, and it was published by two Japanese scientists. So the scientists' names were Rin Hirano and Tomita Yashima, and they published kind of a suspect paper describing the differences between blood types. And it's a type of racist sort of nationalistic pride sort of vibe. 1926 was a year where the Japanese government was kind of gearing up towards.
Right. So that was about the end of Taisho, right?
Yeah. So they're gearing up to go into China and kind of take things over
historically. So when they did the report, how did they use any techniques that we would use today, like statistics, or
no?
It was just anecdotal, basically.
Yeah, anecdotal.
Okay. And so then after this paper was published, then what happened?
So then it goes on, and there's another paper published by a guy named Takeji Furukawa, and he's a scientist. Again, that term's kind of loose, at Tokyo Women's Teachers University, I think it is. Okay. And so he published a paper talking about the character, again, talking about the same thing, character related to blood type.
So this paper was published, and then the public got a hold of it somehow, and
that's right. It was really popular with the public, and again, this is a time where kind of nationalistic pride is being whipped into a frenzy. So this kind of fell perfectly in with the ideas at the time.
So in the late 20s and early 30s, this stuff started to percolate through the public a little bit, and then pretty much do you think it was common during the 30s, 40s, 50s?
I think it was probably common during the 30s and 40s, and then after the war, it kind of died away. I mean, that sort of thinking was no longer in vogue or whatever. And then it was revived again in the 70s in a book by a guy named Masahiro Nomi. And it was very similar to any kind of self-help book.
Oh yeah, so all of the
today.
stuff that's around today, the popular diets and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. There's no scientific basis or anything. It just kind of leaks into the public, and the public gets a hold of it, and they're looking for something to hold on to.
Right.
And it again became very popular. But this time it kind of led to something negative in another way, not necessarily nationalistic pride, but because of this, then companies and different organizations attached themselves to the idea that blood type was an actual thing, and companies and different organizations began focusing on what blood types they were looking for and excluding other blood types.
In order to get those particular personality traits.
Exactly.
Hardworking.
Yeah. Supposedly linked to the proteins in your blood.
All right, so but what real impact would that have on society if a company decides they want type A blood people to come in and work for them, or type B blood people to come in and work for them? They get, people who are potentially on time if they're A, or late if they're B, or hardworking if they're A, or whatever. What impact would that have?
Well, I mean, the obvious impact is that you might be hired if you're A, for example, and not hired if you're B, or you might get a nice promotion if you're an A and not if you're B, or whatever. There's a term in Japanese that's bura, hara, which means blood harassment, that you're harassed basically because of your blood type. So, within the office, people might bully you or whatever, just based on your blood type. And that extends to schools and things like that, so students doing the same
Yeah, so
thing.
there can be a really big impact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's it could come forward as a full type of harassment that people are really having to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as racism. I mean, just skin color has nothing to do with anything.
So is this belief in blood type still considered scientific?
No. I mean, there are plenty of great Japanese scientists. Tetsuya Sato, who's a guy at Ritsumeikan University here in Kansai, who has come out and publicly declared it to be ridiculous that the idea that blood determines anything, or blood type determines anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's plenty of obviously rational and scientific minds out there saying no.
Blood type has nothing to do with personality.
Yeah, absolutely. But the general public isn't necessarily scientific minded, or
True. This seems like something that people might, on the face of it, say is harmless. It's just a little bit of fun, but
most people are like that. To
Yeah.
be fair, I mean there is a lot of that notion. In the same way, astrology is like that in the West. I mean, people read their astrological readings, but
they don't really live by it.
Yeah,
most people don't really live by it. Yeah.
But there are, obviously there is a term, burahara, and that does actually happen. There are complaints about bullying in the schools and bullying at work, and
Based on blood type.
Based on blood type, and if you're being asked in a application for a job what your blood type is, obviously that's something.
And actually, one of the TED Talks that I will have a link for in the description below has a talk from a young woman who I believe is graduating high school this year, and she's talking about the Myers-Briggs assessment, actually.
Right.
And going through and saying that this type of personality inventory can get you a job or can prevent you from getting a job. And it's a really great presentation and very interesting. So if you're interested in that video, check out the link in the description, and check out the TED Talk, because she did a really nice job. The slides maybe need a little bit of work, but it was a very good presentation on that particular topic. Maybe we'll talk about it later on. Do you get people asking you about your blood type?
Not as much maybe anymore, but definitely students ask me sometimes, or if I meet somebody, maybe the second round of communication, somebody's going to say, what's your blood type? Or something. And I always, I fortunately don't know. And it's kind of accepted to not know.
But one of my favorite examples, because I get asked quite a bit by students and stuff, and they're shocked that I don't know what my blood type is, and so they'll be like, "But what happens if you're in an accident?"
Yeah.
Well, there'll be plenty of blood on the ground. They can test that, and I don't really want them to take my word for it in the hospital.
Yeah.
If I just got in an injury into an accident that put me in the hospital, don't believe anything that I say.
Yeah.
Just give me O until you can test my blood.
That's a good point.
All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So blood type, what's your blood type? Put it in the comment section below. And what personality traits do you think come from your blood type, even though it doesn't? All right, we're out of here. We'll see you again with more cultural stuff.